Hello. Uh, Thanks for joining today's webinar about 5G. My name is Odd Gurvin, and I'm working for Norwegian Cognitive Center. Just a few words about us before we start. We are a hybrid project owned by the different industry clusters in the Western region. And our job is to help companies to increase and to a greater extent use of AI. We offer a number of competence enhancing deliveries and activities, in addition to making both AI Watson and AI competence available for those companies who wants to use artificial intelligence. Today's presenter is Ingebrigt Lunde from Nordic 5G Consortium, a consortium established for the purpose only to enhance the media industry to be ready for the 5G technology who is coming. Ingebrigt, welcome and start presenting. You have to unmute first.
Thank you very much. Can you see the presentation now? Thanks for the invite, and we're happy to talk to you about my favorite subject, 5G today. What we are trying to do, first of all, a little bit, let's see here. Okay. First of all, the 5G consortium, we are a consortium containing members from the broadcast industry, basically. NRK, TV2, and other, TV2 Denmark is a very strong player in this, and hopefully soon also the rest of the Nordic broadcasters into this project. The vision here is to have a leading international environment for innovation and knowledge in media and media technology. We know that there's a lot of happening in the 5G community, and we see that the future maybe for broadcast is also based on that. One of the first things I like to say here is that this is Voltaire who said this in the 16th century, but it's very true today as well. Uncertainty is a very uncomfortable situation. We don't know what's happening in the future. It's difficult to predict what's happening. And but if you take it any further and say that we know for certain, then that's an absurd situation as well. So what we are doing today is we are projecting a little bit of educated views and what we're thinking is the future. And also, Nicholas Negroponte from the MIT Institute, he said in 1995, so it's a very long time ago, but it defined the change of the new era, of the digital era, that it's a difference between an atom and being able to send things electronically. The old atom economy and the infrastructure that required things to be sent around and delivered and taken back, and it includes also money, but everything is going in the direction of electronic commerce. And we know that 25 years later, we know that that was pretty sure. What we are seeing today is a change in the infrastructure for media as well. And it doesn't mean that we're not gone digital before, but it means that distribution and automation and contribution is going to be probably done in very different ways from now on. So over to 5G. 5G is definitely something you heard about so far. What we also know is that the previous predecessors also have different names, where they call LTE is the 4G and UMTS is 3G as well. 5G is also called NR, and NR stands for New Radio. And what we will cover today is, first of all, we will go through some of the technological things about 5G. We are going to talk about frequencies. We're going to talk about transmitters, how things are distributed, all of those techie things. For those of you who are most interested in the business, think that will come later. And also artificial intelligence is a little bit embedded in this, but it's also a small session later on in the presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the changes this is going to bring upon us, and also the trends in the market, so that we know approximately where to navigate. We said earlier that this is NR, the new radio, and here's the other abbreviations. The interesting thing is that 5G is not a new thing as such. It's standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean that the LTE and UMTS and GSM and NMT has been paving the road all the way for the 5G standard. And very much of the work has been done before, but this is developing the standard and making it much better, and also able to work for the future. And showing you here is what you will see if you go to a telecoms presentation. If you go to Telenor, Telia, or any others, the presentation that will last for half an hour is containing these subjects here. We're going to go very quickly through them because you might have heard them before, but this is actually what the 5G delivers. So the speed-wise, we know it's going to be blazing fast, 10 gigabits by design. That's up to 10 gigabits. Number two here is the latency is going to be very, very little, down to 1 millisecond. That's nearly unheard of. That delay is going to be so short, and that's the rest of this delay is only due to physical laws. The number three here is that it's up to 1 million units per square kilometers. So that means that it's built to have a lot of small devices, and it doesn't mean to be mobile telephones, everything here. That means that it will be a sensor in some sense, and what's called the IoT, the Internet of Things. So the need for more units is definitely there. It's also predicted to be energy efficient and green. That's true that it has a different kind of distributing the signals. We're going to go through that much more in detail later on. MIMO stands for multiple input, multiple output. Without going further into that one, I'll just wait for some of the next slides here. Then some of the more interesting things here is there's something called SDN, which stands for Software Defined Core Network. Basically, it means that they're changing the traditional networking into virtualization. And for those of you who know virtual computers, that it's not actually a computer, it's something virtualized in another computer. That brings a lot of efficient ways of operating, and it's much more smooth. And it's also very much more flexible and able to control itself because it's all done in software. The uptime is important. We don't know in the last 10 years, this has been growing. Everybody used to have a fixed phone at home, and then mobile phone was something extra. Then things are growing. Nobody has a fixed phone at their home anymore, which means that they're all more dependent on the mobile phone. We can't have situations where the mobile phones doesn't work if somebody has a heart attack, if something important business is going to be used. So the telecommunication authorities and authorities in general are putting much more pressure on the telecommunication companies, saying that, yes, but you have to have a battery backup, you have to have extra lines, you have to have a multiple access to the different network and so on. It's much more pressure that this is a very, very important feature, and it's important for social the society that you have a up and running system, regardless if you have a flooding, if there's a storm, if there's a thunder or blitz or something like that. And inside that software-defined network, there's a vast capacity. It's 10 terabits per square kilometers. It must be able to take all the traffic coming from the network. And last but not least, it has to work if you're driving at 500 kilometers an hour. hopefully not with your car, but there could be aeroplanes, that it could be other ways. It has to work in those situations as well. The other thing that you will be shown at a presentation like that is the triangle on the left-hand side. What it's basically showing that it's 3 directions these things are going in. It's what is called enhanced mobile broadband, which is more of the same of what we're having, but with much higher capacity and much higher speed. On the lower right corner, it's the low latency, which is very essential if you are driving a car or if there's self-driving cars and so on. I'm going to go into some more detail on that later. And the last one down to the lower left corner here is the massive IoT, the massive Internet of Things. Everything basically will probably in the future have a small eSIM card inside it, so you're able to take out and measure the results and so on from it. So the question is, will 5G deliver? And the answer to that one is yes. It's over time. Things takes longer time than we usually think in the first place. The other thing of that equation is that it usually have much bigger consequences than we think in the first phases as well. That's the other side of it. Another aspect of this is frequencies, and I'm sorry for those who are not on the technical side of this. This is just a part of it, because the whole thing, what's fueling the mobile industry, and that's what's fueling the wireless industry in general, is frequencies, the capacity on spectrum. And what's happening on the 5G arena is that we are seeing that this is split into different bands. If you look at the lower bands, that is the very old traditional mobile phone. We see that the capacity is much lower, but the coverage is larger, and also the latency is larger in those. If you go up in frequency, the higher you get in frequency, the lower you have to, or the more close you have to be to the base station. But the benefit of this is that you will get lower latency and much higher throughput, because you have more frequency bands to go through that. And if you are looking at the differences between these technologies, 4G versus 5G, on the left-hand side is the 4G, on the right-hand side the 5G. You see that the capacity here, the available spectrum for 5G is 30 gigahertz, while on the 3G is only 3 gigahertz. And that explains a little bit of what we're going to go through into here, what makes 5G faster. Law of physics are restricting a little bit of how fast things can go, and therefore it's not a vast difference between 4G and 5G on the actual transmitters. But what is changing here is that the band, or the frequency bands, are very expanded in those situations. And by expanding that, we are able to have broader channels, and broader channels will increase the capacity. There's, for some of you who's looked at the details here, you also see that we are now talking about millimeter bands, which is the higher frequencies, and that's over 20 gigahertz, while the traditional one here is what's called frequency range 1, FR1. You see that in the middle of the slide here. That is from 410 megahertz to 7.125 gigahertz. And that is the traditional band, even though it's a little bit higher than those as well. And also there are some outer space bands that we are not going to cover in this first phase of this. The other thing is, apart from the extra capacity and the low latency, inbuilt in the 5G, there's also vastly improved timing. So that means that the base stations, the radio access networks, knows precisely what time it is, and within a millisecond. This is much like the GPS. The GPS transmitters are basing itself, or the basic basically they are basing the whole system on having a very accurate clock, so you can measure things out of that, and that's important for it for the whole thing to go hang together. The other thing is, we talked about earlier on what's called massive MIMO, and what the difference here is that this is what we also call the green footprint. It means that instead of having a base antenna radiating in all directions, we are having small beams going for each device that is seen. And by concentrating the power and the receiver in the direction of where your mobile phone or where your equipment is, it's the range is going to increase, and the speed is going to increase as well, and it's going to use less power for the device. For your device, it's also important because the higher radiation field that you are seeing from the base station, the less battery it's going to use, the less power it's going to use in these situations. So this is an important feature. Massive in this case means maybe it's 32 transmitters and receivers in one base station, and one of them is talking to your device. So the cost of building a 5G network from a telecommunication company is huge, and that's you know, that what they have to pay in price for this is going to come down on us as the price for the product that we're going to buy as well. And if you look in the lower right corner here, then unfortunately this is in Norwegian, but it's it says that the Verizon paid $4.6 billion for 3.5 frequencies in the United States. And this is kind of a sort of a luck situation, because I mean, if the telco companies doesn't have enough frequencies, they can't run their business, and therefore it's increasing the price up to sometimes a silly level at times. So it's important also to have a fairness in the distribution of frequencies. At the same time, there are smart people out there, and things are building differently. And Rakuten, which is a Japanese trading company, I'm told that it's pronounced Rakuten in Japanese, but traditionally it's called Rakuten here on this side of the world. They are also building their own 5G network. And what they are saying, that by using openness, instead of having everything delivered from Ericsson or Nokia or whoever is delivering their network, they are saying that they are looking for best of breed. So the radio units and so on might be delivered from a third company outside the normal telecommunications business. The CTO there is saying that they will save 40 to 60% of the investment, which is a huge sum of money. It's interesting, but it's worth having a look at. Other things is that the frequencies and everything in this sort of system is controlled by an organization called 3GPP. It's consensus based. It means that everybody, it's not by membership and vote, but it's consensus in the way that everybody's talking and offering their ideas and agreeing on those ideas. It's built into three sections here. So one of the RAN is on the left-hand side is the radio access network. In the middle here, the green one is the terminals. That means the actual mobile telephones. And the one to the right is the systems network. That means that what the core network inside that. And what they are doing is that everything in 5G is based on releases. So it's like a software. They are saying that this sort of functionality goes into this release, this version, and it might get into that one, or it might be voted down and saying that this is not so relevant, so it's going to be used. There's a lot of broadcast standards as well inside the different versions here, and it could be used for telecommunications or for broadcasting on the 5G network. But I'm not sure that there are ever going to be used. So even though they've reached the versions and they are programmed and are in the original releases there, it might not get there. What is sure that is that the normal broadband approaches and the normal broadband, what we're seeing broadband is today, will get into this with the new features of 5G. The same as that in many ways that multicast is used today as a way of transporting TV signals. This will be a support for this in the next release, but we will see if it's going to be used. EBU has made a report. The European Broadcasting Union has made a report on this, saying that it's good for traditional broadcast. Maybe that will take over the traditional broadcast for the future. But there are also other forces into that, and the telco companies are also more in favor of running that. And we see that the expansion of Netflix and other services is really weighing up against that. Another thing about 5G, the 5G technology is something called slicing. And we previously talked about the software-defined network in the core of everything here. That means that you can virtualize everything. And slicing is slicing up the core network in the backbone of this, meaning that you can have a slice saying that this has got to do with drones, flying drones, which means that you have to have a very little delay. If not, your drone is moving very far before you're able to stop it. And you have to have special features in those things. You could have a slice in here to do media broadcasting, like the TV transmitters on top of the mountains. You could have a slice here for self-driving cars. And you could have a slice here for Internet of IoT devices. And also within your company, you could have a slice here for your specific needs. This is all a negotiation between you and the telco to do those things. In defining your needs here, you are, if you look at the pentangle here, then it's some of the features that this can deliver. And it's the latency, it's the data rate, it's the reliability, it's the availability, the mobility, etc. And you can map in your application using this and see that this is exactly what you need. And the slice you are getting or will be negotiating in that situation could fit exactly your needs based on negotiation with who you're talking to. So, but there's a road to go, and all of these things, the slicing and everything, it requires everything to be 5G from end to end. What we're going to see in the first phases of 5G is a hybrid solution, and this is called the 5G end to end is called SA, which is standalone. And what we're seeing today is NSA, non-standalone, and basically what we're seeing today and the first versions of 5G that you're going to get for the probably next couple of years is you're going to have a 5G transmitter standing on a rooftop or whatever, but the backbone is going to be 4G. And this is the NSA. Just be aware of that, so that we are not getting all the features of the 5G in the first place. Some time ago, I looked at the LinkedIn, and I saw somebody has posted this, and it shows the different cockpits in the Apollo program, in the space shuttle, and no last and not least the Dragon. And it says here software defined, not hardware limited. Whoa! And then somebody, as a media company, the question is, are we able to adapt the same thing or have these features? Kieran Cunha is a very clever guy. He's written a lot of the standards. He said clever people at the SpaceX, not trying to reenact the past like some people in the broadcast industry. This is the kind of a threat that we are seeing, that we are trying in some situation trying to reenact what we have already done. It's important to see the features that's coming. And one of the features is that will we really need the roof or the antenna sitting on top of Ulriken or another mast, or will we in the future see that every broadcast will go via the 5G network or mobile network in one way or another? The 5G technology by itself is embraced, especially in Germany. You see how happy Merkel is on this picture. And this is important because they have called this the Industry 4.0, and they say that this is important for us in the future. I was looking at this on Danish presentation some time ago, and I was quite embarrassed that we, especially in Norway, that we don't think so much like this. That this is a national kind of interest in those things. We're more thinking about what is interest is this in our own company or for personal use, but Denmark is good at seeing everything as a total thing, and what can this do for the nation, and will this build some of the industry for the nation? Just going very quickly through that, the Industry 4.0 is a term that Germany invented. It means basically that they are seeing that there are some massive changes that 5G will give. And they're saying that, okay, massive IoT, the enhanced mobile broadband, and the fixed wireless access is what's already there, but we will have more and stronger. But the revolution is that you can see that the industrial IoT, you can control robotics, you can have sensors everywhere to do those things. And doing so, they say that, well, let's just make a private 5G network inside a factory, because this needs to be done in a good way. And if you're using the public network, then that has certain consequences, and we should be able to control these ourselves. And I also allocated some spectrum in that respect, which is what you see here on what's called local, which is 3.72 to 3.8 gigahertz, which is not so relevant, but there's spectrum allocated to that, and that's in the interest of the nation. And what they're seeing here at the moment, this is a slide they're taking from Ericsson, is that if our grandfather or in that order wanted to order, if you're living in a farm somewhere, a rowing boat, then I say, okay, I'm going to use this on a river, so it needs to be slick to cut through the currents there. It needs to have long oars because I need extra force, and they had a lot of specification for it to be made. And then somebody cut down a tree and made a boat for him. It was tailored for his special needs. Then Ford came along and manufactured the T Ford, having a totally different approach, saying that we're making millions of cars, they're all going to be the same, take it or leave it. And the thing is now that with the robotics and everything, things are going back. So if you are buying, this is a very, very mild kind of thing. If you're buying a new car today, you're choosing what sort of equipment and what color and what's the extras you will need for your car. It's being produced at the Audi factory or the BMW factory or whatever, and then you're getting the car sent to you. It takes a little bit longer time, but you're getting it. This is just a start. So for the future, there will be robotics producing these things based on what you want them to do, which means that factories again will have to be rearranged all the time, and that's important when you think about having a wireless kind of community and able to do these things. This is called non-public networks, and that's the private network in those situations. So thinking about this as a broadcaster, this can be done in a way that you are setting up a small base station somewhere on the Rust Island or whatever. This is before there's a real 5G coverage there, and all your internet or all your devices will be connected up to that network. Because we are seeing today that the vast majority of broadcast equipment today is also starting to come with eSIM, so it can be incorporated into this. And there's ways to do that. It doesn't have to be a network by itself for TV production. It can also be connected up to the 5G network if that's available, and then go via the public 5G network back to your NRK or TV2 or main broadcaster, and then your studio at Rust or wherever you are will be totally transparent. You won't see that it's actually there. They're all connected together via high-speed lines to be able to do these things. So, and that brings on big changes. It's the major thing about this is that there's no cabling involved. And that means a lot of, I mean, you don't hardly need people in that situation to rig everything 2 days before and to take everything down there, which means less people means kind of greener footprint because there's less people out in the field producing these things. It's a massive automation project. And you see that 5G and wireless technology in general is automation by default. It's making everything much more efficient. Today we're seeing a lot of equipment here. Sennheiser has microphones that will built in eSIMs 5G ready. Do you see the light here on the this is from the Berlins Canteen in Denmark, that it's producing a light for the studio that has a built-in 5G. You can control it via that one. There's cameras coming. There's everything is coming in those situations. So let's lean back a little bit and just think that what can the 5G network do for us? And this is an open question because a lot of the answer isn't out there, and that's up to you to find the innovations. What can you use the 5G network for? And I'm just using an analogy that if we suddenly had a 5-lane motorway between Bergen and Oslo that took 1 hour to drive, no ferries, no nothing. It just takes 1 hour to drive forth and back. What will that be change in the society? Would there be warehouses? Need to be warehouses both places? What can that achieve for society? And in the first place, somebody say, okay, that means that we're putting down a warehouse in Bergen and putting everything on Stockhouse in Oslo, and that will be it. But as time goes by, there's going to be innovations because of that is a new infrastructure. Things are going to be done differently, and the smart guys like yourself are going to think of new ways of doing that. That's the purpose of the whole thing with the 5G technology. We need to think differently. Well, how can we use that? How can we make things more efficient, and how can we develop things from that? And so if distance and capacity is irrelevant, what can we do? I didn't say before, but when we talk about the 5G network as such, it's such a complicated network that it's run almost exclusively by the AI in the core of it. The software-defined network, that's not somebody sitting there programming all the time. This is done, it's converging by itself, it's seeing where traffic is going there, it's changing everything. And all of these things are done by sensors. Something is telling everybody that something needs to be changed. This is a research threshold. This is not being used at all. This is things happening. There will be in the future. There will be sensors everywhere. And I talked to Telenor a couple of weeks ago, and they've been up on having a coverage test in northern Norway, and they said it to me that they are building some new roads up there, and even the roads have sensors, so they don't have to plow the roads unless the sensors are telling them that will be the case. There will be sensors everywhere, and including on the human body. There is a new standards now calling WBAN, which is a wireless body area networks. So you can imagine that if you're having the sensors everywhere telling the state of your body, that is a possibility, and especially if you are in a risk zone, this is very, very, very useful. So this is a little bit of what the future might bring. It's quite overwhelming, but it's also there. We talked earlier about timing, and timing can be used for all other purposes as well. This means that for the mobile phones using the 5G, it's able to track this down to approximately 30 centimeters by using triangulation. If you have three base stations that you're seeing, you can just measure the distance between them, and you can hit the distance by approximately 30 centimeters. On this slide, you will see some of the opportunities this will give you with regards to sales, with regards to mapping, with regards to traffic, with regards to roadblocks and every these things. And it's also in a situation where that was introduced a couple of days ago that they're saying that when 5G is implemented in cars, if you're hitting a slippery road, it can send a signal to the car coming behind you and saying that I just saw some slippery road here, so be aware of this. And this is all automated, of course, so that within a second or so that the car will get there, it will know that this is a dangerous path of the road. Interesting thoughts. So what changes will it bring? We are for the artificial intelligence. It's I'm told that the distributed artificial intelligence is also thinking about these things, because the low latency between the device and the parameter, where you can build huge data centers and interpret the data and use something to do these things, are so low. Also, with the edge native applications, on the edge of the networks, because of the 1 millisecond delay, they should be able to make parameters, and the telcos, while building the networks, have a couple of things that they are looking at the moment, and one of them is building cloud services or computer centers in the edge of their parameters to be able to do a lot of processing, and you can rent processing power at these parameters and get things done very quickly. The third point for artificial intelligence is advanced network security, which is very important in these days, and you will see what's happening in the parliaments and other places. The more we can do with this on artificial intelligence, being active 24/7 and knowing what's happening and taking the actions, the more important it is. So, media specific, what can be done here? The most important thing is to automate. The other thing is to simplify operations, cut a little bit of the OPEX, instead of having operators doing things that's fully possible to automate these things using artificial intelligence and the 5G network. And as has been said before, some of the most difficult tasks are actually doing well. Some of the simplest things is that if you it's simpler to have a lawyer, such as a lawyer, and to make that efficient than somebody working and serving street food or a hamburger or something like that. So it's important that they're using this for the right purposes, but it's most things are able to be automated, and especially repetitive tasks. I mean, if you're doing the same things and you're looking at the same book to do the same recipes, then those things can be automated pretty quickly. For the potential purposes of getting something back from this as well, this potential growth is enormous in this market. And you see from these slides as well that we are from 170 billions in 2018, this is the mobile platform. We are predicting that will be approximately 420 billions per year in 2028. And some of the things there that will be driven by 5G is, of course, based on video, gaming, music, advertising, but most of all, AR and VR will be very fundamental. We see from TikTok, we see from other things out there, people want to be part of something. They want to participate in those things. They want to be seen. It's all going down to individual level, and people are prepared to pay if they are able to see themselves in a kind of virtual reality, or where they're playing themselves into those situations. Also, gaming is one of the major things in this. This is one of the driving forces that needs the bandwidth, and then it needs the latency and all those things. So for home use, that's one of the purposes, or that's one of the reason for that to develop as well. And of course, new media is important. We need to find new ways of using this. I'm sure there's plenty of ways of doing things differently, and we should explore that situation and see what we can do about it. This slide here, we'll distribute the slides when the presentation is finished. You will see here on the extreme left side of this, you will see that it start offering residential broadband bundles is a priority at the moment. We are at the very start of this phase, and you also see that one of the first offerings you will see from 5G is fixed wireless access, FWA, and that's really competing against fibers. It could be a chance that in the future, in 10 years' time, we'll all see the fiber as the fixed telephone of the past, and that we'll all have this kind of a fiberless network, because there are some benefits with the fixed wireless access, and one of them is the latency. Although they offer the speed in the fiber, then it's more built on a traditional core network, but that could change in the future. Let's see. I'm not going to go into this, but if you look at on the extreme right hand side of this, it's also talking about haptic. Haptic is what you can sense. If you're having senses of things, and if you're playing that into games and video and all those things, it gives you a perspective of where we're going. So luckily, this is all linked together in a good way. I think we'll see this in the future. This is the actual motorway to the future. This is we are today in 2020. This is going to be mostly fully built out by 2030. And welcome back in 2030. Then there will be 6G, and 6G will make 5G look like some maybe 2G, but the way we're doing that today, 100 times faster. And the frequency of 5G will be more up against the terahertz, sorry, and that's more up against the ultralight kind of frequency. So you need to get even closer to the transmitter in those situations as well. So without further ado, that's what we have to say today, and we are open for questions. And please contact us if you have any further questions, and we're more than happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Ingebrigt. Do you stop sharing your slide? For those who have questions, just send them in or raise your hand. We have one question here now. Thanks for a great presentation. Will it be available afterwards? It will be. We have another question here. What main challenges will we need to see on the personal devices to drive evolution?
To
drive innovation.
Drive evolution. Yes, it's well, the devices will be developed as the hand device will be developed. The mostly important development is to get onto the millimeter waves. And the telcos has a tremendous job to build out the new base stations. And I think we're going to see, because the coverage of these are so little. So just be prepared for that. Every lamp post around should have in the future a 5G transmitter. So that when you're getting close to things, then you are able to fully utilize the bandwidth as well. And this sounds like a silly idea, but the thing is that we have already built in. You already have the street light. There's also a question of expanding this down to get to that sort of level as well. And we need to go there because the 6G will need that. We need to have a closer proximity to the base stations. So it will be carpet bombing of base stations in the future, and that's the biggest challenge that the telcos have today. And I'm not sure if they're going to have to how they're going to solve it. We're not going to see that in the first few years, but for the future, that is the most important thing.
Third question. In your opinion, what is realistic time frame for broad rollout of 5G to consumers?
It's going to be rolled out by the cities, and I just had I was in a meeting today with Telia, attending a meeting, but they presented that. They said that 2022 is when they're going to see that in the major cities, and that's going to be below 7 gigahertz probably in that respect. I talked to Telenor last week, and they say that inside coverage, for example, on Media City Bergen, they see around 2023, 2024. That will be on millimeters. And everything beyond that. But as I said earlier, things take much longer time than we anticipated in the first phase, but it has much larger consequence than we see today. So it's a long rollout, and for us, that's a little bit impatient in these things. That it takes far too long time, we think, but it will come. But in the time frame 2024, then we should have a very, very good rollout for Norway.
When you said Media City Bergen, did you mean the building or what in the city? Is that the same time frame?
That was inside. That's inside the building, but for 2022 in Bergen, they should have good coverage in 2022, 2023, okay, around that time frame.
Yeah. Here is excellent session, and I look forward to 2030. Can you share your thoughts on future benefits you would like, ethical AI? And there is 2 questions. What future benefits you would like? The first one.
Oh, there's a lot of features there, but things are pretty well laid out as well with regards to, if somebody's interested in 6G, there's a magazine called 6G Waves. You can download that on the internet. We are happy to share the source for that as well. That has a lot of these ideas, but there's a lot of things happening in different directions, and that's pointing out some of them. It's too many of them to go into that. But and for the ethical IE, I'm looking forward to that. That's one of the big hurdles and big questions. That's really the kind of the biggest of them all, apart from that understanding of why people like music. So I think that's the 2 big things that the AI should really work on the future. And that if they are able to do those things, then they are probably equal to human mind in the future.
I have a question. Why does the industry sector need a consortium to be ready for 5G? Like the media class, Nordic 5G consortium. Why does industry need a consortium to be ready?
Because the telco business is a strong business by itself, and of course, if it's important to be able to deliver goods or needs in all sorts of directions. There are things such as frequencies that are awarded based on what we are seeing applications, and there's also a lot of political work being done in those in that kind of field. We need to be able to speak with one voice and saying that this is important for our future. It's also important for Norway's future, Sweden's future, Denmark's future, to be able to use these sort of technologies. And we shouldn't restrict ourselves to be just a customer of a business to be able to deliver these things. This is important to have on a broader spectrum. And taking those stands and standing up for those interests, that is our main job, and it requires a lot of political work and understanding of the future.
Thank you. There was no more question. Next event from Norwegian Cognitive Center will be in 21st of October. Then we have AI Inspire activity, cracking the AI code, everyday examples with great impact, where we're going to hear from Hansa, BKK, Kötters, and Mjoll. There's going to be 2 days, 1 hour session each day. One is for product owner and managers and business developers. And the next day is going to be more for the technical competence in the different industries. So thank you for joining today, and welcome back next time. And thank you, Ingebrigt, for a very interesting session. Bye.